And you can
Save.
send me that article in the description too, and I'll
Yep.
put it in in the Discord. I'll put it in the description of the video.
Sounds good. Let me also make this not unlisted. Public. Save. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Things We Like podcast with your
There we go.
boys. I think we are
Yes,
live. We are
we sure
live.
are. I have the chat pulled up right next to me. Oh, look, I'll show you. I bought this thing. This is from Evangelion.
Oh, that's
It's
so sick.
and it's like hold on, I can do this. So it holds my phone up so I could read the chat and
Oh, that's
everything.
so
So
dope.
it's one of those like blind boxes that you can get,
Yeah,
and I love blind boxes. They're awesome. But I haven't. I'm still trying to watch the show, but that's the one I got.
that's so sick.
So I have the chat and everything pulled up right here. I might even use it when I stream. But yeah,
We are here. Uh, first off, rip. We made a video that by the time you watch this will have gone out.
true.
If you're watching it live, it's not out yet. But if you're watching this
You continue
after the
that. I'll be right
fact,
back.
I made a video recently with Brooks where we talked about books, and this is the book that Brooks has landed
Oh,
on to
hold on.
finally start
I gotta get my ears plugged back
reading.
in. But you just keep on ranting.
Finally start reading. So we made a
All
we made
right.
a we made a video based on if you're into video games, what kind of books might you like reading, if you're trying to get into reading. And Brooks picked the one that I basically said was Elden Ring, the book.
Yeah, it might show backwards in the thing, but I don't think so down the recording. Maybe in the live
No,
stream,
it's
but
fine.
okay, it's probably just on my end though. But I got it. I'm gonna start it this weekend, and I'm super excited. I've just been really busy this week. Also, this is also Andrew's doing
Oh
the
yeah.
the calendar book.
Yeah, it's a
He had one.
planner.
Yeah, he had one with like
Yeah, this is
Earthbound on
mine.
it.
This is mine. It's Mother 2 edition
I love it.
planner. It's really dope.
I had to I cut off one of the bookmarks because I hated having two bookmarks on it.
One's for your month and one's for your week.
Yeah, well,
That's
I
what
only
I do.
want one.
That's
You're
fine.
smart. You're a better man than me.
Yeah. But yeah, so totally 100% books is about to be full send books.
Dude, yeah.
Brooks, last week we talked about, or last time we had an episode, we talked
Hmm.
about how there was nothing going on right now, and we felt
Yeah, we sure did.
like nothing was happening. And then I
Hmm.
think like 2 days later, there was this Bungie announcement. So why don't you talk to me about this?
Okay, so the gaming industry is pretty ask and receive, it seems like,
Yeah.
and not in a good way. So we went. It's what's that thing from The Office where it's like 0 days since like a office nonsense
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever. Like
Yeah.
we had to like erase that. And
100%.
I think a guy mentions it in one of these videos that I'm going to link. I'm going to link a bunch of resources so you could, dive into this properly. So I'm going to give you like a surface level overview of what's going on. So Bungie, the people responsible for this little indie hit, I don't know if you've heard of it, called Halo.
Yeah.
Kind of a big deal when it came out, and yeah, they're important to a lot of people. However, recently they have been working on a game called Marathon, which, funny enough, Marathon was like it was like a Doom clone when it came out first.
Interesting.
So Doom came out, and then Bungie developed Marathon, which is very very similar to it. So it's not just like, hey, we're gonna just build an IP from the ground up. We are going to resurrect this old one and make it into a thing now. However, the biggest controversy that I'm aware of that is going on right now is plagiarism and stealing from an artist.
Oof.
So there are assets that an artist posted from like I don't know, years back, and they show like a side by side comparison of the art, and it's basically like it's really hard to dispute that they didn't steal it.
Yeah.
Um, and there was one asset. So do you know the Lost meme? Like, if I were to be like, "This is Lost," do you know what that is?
Like the show?
No,
Um
it's like So there's this. It's one of the most like reposted images of all time on the internet. It's this is lost, and it's like the guy he walks into the hospital, and then he talks to the receptionist, he talks to the doctor, and then he sees his wife laying in
Oh,
bed.
is this lost?
Yeah, is this
Got
lost?
you.
So that made its way into Bungie, but it was like I think somebody like hid it in their assets or something, and then it made it into the game, and that
That's
part,
crazy.
yeah. So I don't know how that got in because again, this is very surface level, and I will be linking all the videos that I've kind of skimmed through or watched, and also my recall is garbage. So basically, the biggest issue right now is that Bungie is in hot water for stealing the art from this person, and
Oof.
they never hired them. They never like all.
Contracted them
Yeah, well, people are
or
arguing it's
licensed.
like,
Yeah.
what should they do? They should apologize and like pay the
Well,
person,
yeah, they should give them royalties or something.
or like credit them, give them royalties or whatever. And like that's the biggest controversy right now. And there's a the last thing I'll add on to this is there was like a live stream with the people, like two guys who were like doing like a press run or something of it, and it was they were streaming on Twitch, and you could just see the live stream. It just says plagiarism will make me God.
Jeez.
And it's just the whole thing is just it's awesome. And then the guy's just he's sitting there, he looks so upset. But yeah,
Dang.
Bungie,
Hey man, don't mess with live stream. Don't try to live stream when you have controversy around. You
dude,
should
for
know
sure,
better. You should
for
know
sure.
better.
So why are we mentioning this on the podcast? It's just another series of big corporations uh, meddling in gaming, and they're just
AAA studios dropping the ball
it's
in some
just
form or fashion.
like now they've joined the ranks of like EA and
Bethesda.
Blizzard and Bethesda and Valve to an extent, where
To an
all these
extent, yeah.
yeah
Project
Valve
CD Red.
yeah I mean there's all these people that this is bothering me. I had to fix it. Um, all these like AAA developers are getting too greedy, and they are implementing like anti-consumer practices, which
Sure.
means like well in the case of plagiarism it's like, hey, we're going to cut as many corners as possible. So it like may that doesn't technically harm the consumer,
Hmm.
but it does harm the industry if they're going to be implementing practices of like, hey, let's steal this so we don't have to pay these people. That's sort of their mentality, is like, how can we make this product that sells a lot, that makes the people at the top tons of money
Hmm.
without having to actually pay people to make that? Like,
Yeah.
how can we cut as many corners and put like just pump out slop? Because Marathon like is supposed to be a looter shooter, which is like popular right now. I don't play shooters personally, but I'm kind of aware of.
Would that be like a PUBG
Mm,
or like a Valorant type deal
I
or
think so. A looter shooter would be like I just looked it up, like Destiny 2
okay, yeah,
or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Borderlands,
Which
Warframe.
is more of what Bungie is known for is like those type of games. 'Cause don't they make Destiny?
Yeah, yeah. Bungie
Yeah.
developed Destiny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, that it's more in their wheelhouse.
So yeah, it's just really disappointing. Like
That's sad
uh,
because they kind of screwed Destiny over too. So I have a bunch of friends that are massive Destiny fans,
mm-hmm,
and like Destiny 1, one of the goated games of all time when it comes to like that genre of like space shooter
mm-hmm.
type deal. And Destiny 2 in the beginning was so sick, and then they made it like a free to play and do the paid like games paywall
Yeah,
stuff and all
my
that kind of
friend
stuff.
my friend Jonathan was big into Destiny
And like I
too,
think
or Destiny also.
in the beginning it was cool, but and then like it definitely as seasons went on it got progressively worse and like terrible. And I know a lot of friends of mine that just bailed out of the whole game after spending years grinding their characters and like getting all this loot stuff, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just didn't end up being they couldn't consistently output for that. I don't. I mean, it's also a game that like Destiny I always wanted to get into because it looks so fun.
Mm-hmm.
But then like you see the community, the deep community's reaction to a lot of the moves that they make, that Bungie
Mm-hmm.
makes, and it's like, man, I just don't want to have to deal with all that.
It just seems that like these really big developers, like Blizzard and Diablo, like when Diablo 4 came out and it was like super controversial, but I've heard it like got better over time, but it's still like
Mm-hmm.
still weird. Like Blizzard's been weird about World of Warcraft for a long time. They've been like essentially talking down to their fan base when they did that big press release, and they're like they introduced like a mobile game thing, and they're like, "What? You guys don't have phones or whatever?" And it's like the guy was like, "You think you want this, but you actually don't." Um, and it's
Cool.
really annoying.
Cool.
It it's super annoying because I think you might agree with me on this, but in the age of the internet, every fan base of every art form and every media is extremely vocal.
Oh yeah. Well, as they should be. Like
Of course.
as they should be in the day and age of prices are only getting, they're only asking more money. We've talked about it before. They're only gonna be asking for more money for these things,
Yeah.
or putting these things on monthly subscriptions that cost hundreds of dollars a year over the
Yeah.
course of a year. And if they're going to be doing that, they deserve every bit of criticism and
Of course.
accountability to their fans.
Yeah, I think so too. So it's like the film industry, for example, like Disney just came out with Lilo and Stitch. Let's talk about that for like
Oh
a split second.
God. Talk about
And
backlash.
yeah, I mean, some people are. I've watched a couple videos on it because I don't personally want to go see it.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty skeptical of the Disney remakes. There's movies that I want to go see, obviously, but Lilo and Stitch was not one of them because I was like, well, I don't trust them.
No.
And people are like, they're saying it's awful. They're saying it's better than like, I mean, anything's better than Snow White.
Yeah.
But it's still kind of like an insult to the original. And like they're trying, like Stitch looks,
They changed the entire meaning of the movie.
and like I feel like I can get enough of why people hate it from the videos.
Oh yeah. Just literally go
Because
like look up Lilo and Stitch review on like TikTok or YouTube.
yeah, and like I haven't heard one person being like, "Yo, this is like amazing. This is like they finally got it right. They did the justice to the original. They did this. They did that." But
Yeah.
like it all leads into the why are we mentioning Lilo and Stitch and then Bungie? Because it's the same concept.
Yeah.
Literally the same concept is there. It's like these fan bases and these people who we spend money on media. We love media. We love entertainment. We love art. Like we are spending uh, our time and money investing ourselves into this art. And people are very passionate about it. People care about it. What could be like, oh, well, Lilo and Stitch doesn't, who cares about it? That's just a movie. Well, that person's just a movie is somebody else's like passion. So you got to consider that. And like when it comes to gaming and when it comes to movies, when it comes to all of this art, it's so like I'm not necessarily advocating for studios and filmmakers and game developers and like artists. I'm not advocating for artists to literally give them everything they want because that takes away the element of creation,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But like at least hit some of the marks, like take what they want and make something great out of that because it's literally it's free. How do I want to say this? It's like a layup. Like you have so many
Dude,
layups,
yeah. Well, and like I think with Lilo and Stitch, it's like one, that movie's not that old. Um yeah, I think it was I don't know, 2007 or something like that, 2004. Like it's not that old. It's like mid-aughts when that came out. So
Let's see.
it's not quite 20 years old, I do believe. Which for the ones that they're remaking,
Ooh, 2002.
okay, so it's a little older than I thought, but
Yeah.
still, like, it's probably the newer of the ones that they've decided to remake, because most of the ones are like
Yeah.
80s, 70s, if not 60s. Like Snow White's like 60s.
Yeah, that was like
Um,
Snow White's like from the 40s.
yeah, yeah,
Like
it's
that's
crazy. Like
crazy.
the colored, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it's crazy. And so they're like some of the ones that they're doing are incredibly old. This is definitely the newest one, and a lot of people were like, "We're not asking for like no one is asking for this in the first place."
No.
And so with that in mind, literally, if they just stuck to the storyline exactly, made a live action version of that movie, and then made like a couple tweaks to make it a little more relevant,
Mhm.
that's all they got to do. Keep the same storyline, keep the same story beats. You know what I'm saying? Like keep everything pretty
Yeah,
much the same. They would print money with that. They would
yeah, they
just print money with that.
they would, and it's like they try so hard to deviate from the source material, and that sort of like hubris
Yeah.
is not good for a remake or a remaster. It's like we've seen it even in the Demon Souls. I think it's remake because remaster
Yeah.
is just taking the game and just
Upscaling it basically.
upscaling it, but a remake is building it from the ground up. And
Hmm.
like even in the Demon Souls remake, like there are there are some design things that they chose to do that like some people don't necessarily agree with because it's like the developers think that they know better. It's like, and they're
Yeah.
not even like really outwardly saying it. Maybe they are. Maybe they're defending their choices. But like, if you're gonna remake something, like, pay attention to the original. And I wish people that remade things would understand why the original was so great. Because like the Lion King remakes, people despise those. Like uh, Snow White, people despise that
Yeah.
movie, and it was a huge flop. And it's the same. It's like all of this, like
Yeah.
all these things add up to this one problem of like hubris and greed, and like how can we make, like, they want to make a profit, but they also want to be relevant. They also
Sure.
want to be like, they're trying to please everybody and they end up pleasing nobody.
Yeah.
You know what would be I agree to your point of like stick closer to the source material, because that could be a child's first introduction to the thing, and when it's
Yeah.
like so totally different than the original, um it's like nobody's asking for that.
Yeah.
Like you might be able to entertain like a 4-year-old,
Sure.
but like
Well, you couldn't because my son went to go see it with his grandparents, and he only made it through half the movie before he
yikes.
checked out.
So here's another point. You know what would be awesome is if Disney literally had, they're sitting on these like amazing IPs and amazing films that they've made in the past. One thing that's popular now in movie theaters is like, I'll go to some movie theaters and they like play old movies. They rotate movies
Well, they used
in
to
and
do
out.
that. So they used to do that actually. When me and Aaron were dating, we went to go see like a remastered version. So it was like a 4K, like a high res upscale and like remix, like the music was remixed version of, I can't remember which movie it was, but I think it was something like Snow White or something like that. It
Hmm.
was one of our early dates back before we got married. And yeah, 100%. It works. Studio Ghibli does that all the time with their
Yeah.
stuff. They'll do like weekend releases of all of their stuff in theater, in theatrical releases of their movies, and it's dope. And people buy
Hmm.
tickets and they go and they do really well. And it's like, all right, cool, like just do that.
They could literally rotate.
It's quite literally printing money with stuff they
Yeah,
already have.
what they could do is literally they could take two or three like Disney Pixar films that are like very pop. Like, okay, let's say
Do
for,
like a marathon.
yeah, well, let's say for the month of like June, is about to be June, so they have like Toy Story, Aladdin, and Tarzan or something,
Hmm.
and they're all playing in select theaters for a month, and then they change them out, and then like in July you get like The Little Mermaid, you get Lion King, and then you get like Wally or something like that, something random, and then it just kind of, they shuffle through it, and they could literally take two or three of those movies, shuffle them out every year, and it would give people the opportunity to see them on the big screen. Like you could buy or you could watch Wally. You could do that, um, like on Disney Plus. But it's seeing a Disney film like the original, because like Toy Story was the first movie I ever saw in
Yeah,
theaters. I remember it very vividly, and it changed my life. Like I love that movie. Tarzan was big for me too. So seeing those movies on the big screen, it's very inspiring, and it honors the work of the people that came before. You know, like that really did all the hard work and like made great movies and
hmm
made great scores and you know made great animation, and like it honors that work. So
for sure. Well, I think, and what we're saying, I think back to the Bungie comparison is,
hmm
I think it's a good thing for the fan bases to be vocal and be loud about like the things that they want to see with their favorite IPs, whether it's a Disney, whether it's
hmm
Bungie making terrible decisions. Bungie as a corporation who has previously made some of their favorite games like Halo or Destiny, and like making weird decisions with this new game. I think people need to make sure they're vocal and make sure that they push the negatives as far as like making sure that the developers realize that it is a problem.
Yep.
Uh, on that note, and this is a
Yep.
really good transition. Speaking of which, recently we have come. It's been announced that there's going to be an Elden Ring movie, and this is a theme that is close to Brooks's heart.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, for sure.
so let's pull it up. I have an article here. We're gonna walk through it real quick, and
hmm
then we'll kind of take a break and talk about it. This is from PCGamesIn.com. Elden Ring movie release date estimate, cast predictions, and story ideas. It's kind of just probably it's couple published a couple days ago. It's just like a it got announced and we'll see, and he's gonna talk about what he thinks it's gonna happen, like what's gonna happen with it. To to many, Elden Ring is merely a game about fighting things, monsters, people, strange, nondescript globules of matter. Fighting does take the center of stage from FromSoft's epic, but there is so much more to Elden Ring than a good scrap. With the movie officially in the works, we've gathered everything there is to know about the release date, cast, and what they might tackle in the story. The Elden Ring movie isn't the first video game to get a shot at the big screen, and it most certainly won't be the last, but it's got a deep well to pull from. We can see this being up there with one of the best. It's difficult to imagine how the director will approach the Souls-like game, though, with Elden Ring being an immersive environmental tale rather than a standard A to B affair, very like railroaded storyline. It's pretty broad in how you experience the game. Also, it would be a pretty dark movie in general. Uh, Another one of Alex Garland's adaptations, Annihilation, took around 2 years to shoot. Given that, and the fact that Elden Ring movie it was only recently announced, we estimate its release to be sometime in 2027. Of course, it all depends on whether the Elden Ring movie currently has an approved script. If we take writing, it could even push the release date out further, so maybe 2028, 2029. Cast, the only thing they know about like specifically is that Alex Garland is from A24. So A24 is tackling the movie.
hmm
Alex Garland is set to direct and has a tendency to use a lot of the same actors. So Oscar Isaac being one of those actors. Oscar Isaac is actually one of my favorite. I love Oscar Isaac as an actor. I actually think he's a massively underrated actor.
I agree with that.
He was in, if you're a Marvel fan, he was Moon Knight.
hmm
And Moon Knight, he acted his absolute butt off in that show because he had to play somebody with multiple personality.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he had three personalities in him, and he had to instantly switch like in between like those things in some scenes, and it's crazy.
He was also in Star Wars and Dune.
And
So,
and he's incredible in both of those as well.
hmm
Uh, and he was in both Ex Machina and Annihilation, which
nice.
um, and Sonia Mizuno also appeared in those. Alex Garland also wrote the scripts for 28 Days Later and Sunshine.
Wow. I just
Yep.
saw 28 Days Later in theaters because they're doing a promo for 28 Years Later that we're gonna go
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
That
Dude,
movie's
what a
incredible.
what a great movie. And both star Killian Murphy, who Alex Garland also tends to like. So Killian Murphy would be
Oh,
really interesting.
oh, Cillian Murphy in the Elden Ring movie. He's one
Would
of my
be
favorites.
would be pretty cool. Yeah,
Definitely Ian's
and
favorite.
yeah, Killian Murphy also tends to really like working with Alex Garland, so that's like a it's like a thing. And then so this is plot ideas because how would you wrangle the plot of Elden Ring? So this is what he says. This is where things get murky. Elden Ring generally foregoes all conventional storytelling practice for a more environmental affair. Myths are told via item description, corpses talk of events in the past, and occasionally a huge tremorous creature will monologue at you before proceeding to bash your head in. Because of this, it's incredibly difficult to know where the Elden Ring movie will go in terms of narrative. Alex Garland has adapted other source material before, namely with 2018's Annihilation. Taking Annihilation as an example, it's clear that Garland isn't afraid to tinker with the story if he thinks it will suit the big screen better. And we could see this happen with Elden Ring. On that note, a lot of people might not like that very much because the Elden Ring does have it's not a clear plot, but it does have a very specific plot.
Hmm.
Um, Taking on the A plot of Elden Ring would be an insurmountable feat. Cramming that much lore into 2 hours would be incredibly difficult and messy. So we could see Elden Ring movie taking a small slice of that world and immersing us in it. Night of Black Knives, for instance, would make that specific story for Elden Ring veterans and newcomers alike would find that enthralling. An assassination plot in a grim fantasy world sounds really dope. That's everything we know. Uh, yeah, that's everything that they know about the Elden Ring stuff. So A24's getting taking on the Elden Ring movie. Um, yeah, Alex Garland's going to be at the helm as far as directing it goes.
Wow.
Uh,
This could be like a huge deal. It
Dude,
could be
it
like
it could be a big dub for like video game movies.
it could because okay, the last couple video game movies that we've had, like the Mario movie,
Crushed.
um, no, yeah, that one was good.
However you feel about the actors that portrayed them, I actually think because I have seen that movie about a million times with my
Yeah,
son, it actually it does really well. A lot of people are like super video game people weren't massive fans of it for certain reasons, and like I
yeah,
get those reasons, but also it was for a general audience, and it crushed for a general audience.
yeah. I think, and then the Sonic movies, people have responded to very well.
Dude, I've also seen all those, and those are also amazing.
Okay, so here's my.
Those have actually only gotten better as they've went, and they're set up for a fourth one,
Oh, that's cool.
which is Metal Sonic, which is like this is the thing. They've hit like the three major storyline beats in the first three movies,
Yeah.
and they've set themselves up to go into deep Sonic lore
Oh
like
yeah.
later. Like if we're getting Metal Sonic and like time travel, which is like what Metal Sonic is,
Mm-hmm.
you get into like deep space like crazy lore behind Sonic
You could do
stuff.
multiverse stuff if you have time travel, I think, and then like
Well,
they could.
potentially, but like the big bad in Sonic is the guy that gives so you know the shadows like shadow energy.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that gives shadow that or helps create shadow. The piece of dark energy that they use to create shadow,
Mm-hmm.
the person that is from is like the major bad entity across all Sonic universe.
Oh, okay.
There's like another person that's like bigger than Eggman and more
Wow.
big bad. But it's like deep Sonic lore that most people don't know. Most people that play the games don't even know about.
Yeah. So here's my take on everything that we just read. I think if they really, really want to knock this one out of the park, first of all, I think movie is like I'm hesitant because this could be like a 10 part like Netflix
Yeah.
or HBO Max or Hulu series and it would just crush
I
because
feel
you have
like
an hour
movie is
dedicated.
a weird choice for Elden Ring, personally.
I think movie is too like
Small.
yeah, it's like well, The Lord of the Rings is a great example because it took 3 movies to really tell that story because there's so much and
And
there's so
it
much they
it
left
cut
out.
out so much, but he probably did the best he could to make it into each book into a movie. And those movies are still 3 hours plus long.
and they're awesome. Like I
Yeah.
love the original Lord of the Rings. Like that's like, I mean, we both love high fantasy, and that's
Hmm.
like the king of high fantasy, arguably. So like, Elden Ring is like that's like my baby. So like, um, I think that movie it's weird because I feel like there's so much that there's going to be missed out on if you want to go from the straight like I think having the Night of Black Knives thing is great because that's when they kill uh Godwin,
Hmm.
I think his name is, and then they kill Godwin, and then like all that happens, and like
But that's all precursor lore, right?
well yeah, well it's like you could get into the world of like the demigods, and like there's Ronnie, and then there's all these people, and like granted, I know a good bit of the lore, but like trying to recall it again,
It's a
my
lot.
recall
It's
is
very deep.
but
Well, it's also
so
just a lot to know.
yeah, I know. It's like Kingdom Hearts, just like getting into
Yeah.
the real thick of it when it comes to all the characters and everything that really happens, and like it's a lot to remember, it's a lot to keep in your brain, and that's the way
Sure.
Elden Ring is for me. So that being said, I think having it in a movie format is like concerning to me, but I think it can be done. I think because there's such a lack of story, you could make it, the plot could be just insanely simple, and you could just have a field day with the visuals and the experience of like
Hmm.
the Tarnished fighting the bosses, like having these encounters with these like uh giant creatures like seeing Rykard on the screen would be
Yeah.
crazy. Seeing like I think you'd have to have Morgott or Margit.
Yeah.
You'd have to have the Margit fight. You'd have to have the Godric fight.
Hmm.
You need Radagon and the Elden Beast.
Yes.
Um, but you would also have to. I wonder.
Here's the other thing. Here's the other thing. And this is like a movie thing. They normally never put it on one character. And Elden Ring is a very singular character story.
Yeah,
And they're probably gonna make it a group rather than an individual.
I think.
Mainly because that tends to play better with audiences.
I think what would the way I would tackle this, being somebody who's never made a movie before, um, but just understanding the game and how it works because I've played that game. That's probably the game I played the most in my life is
Yeah.
Elden Ring. Aside from like maybe Pokemon, like I played a lot of Pokemon, but I think what would be cool would be setting up the story with the Knight of Black Knives, starting with the Tarnished kind of waking up and like discovering where they are, and but the thing is, if you do that, then okay, there's a ton of build variety in Elden Ring. Are you gonna
So
be
that is why I think they'll use multiple people to showcase the build variety.
well? Yeah, I think what you could do is you could you have to have a character like Blide in there. You
Hmm.
have to have like the Radon Festival. That would probably be where because you summon all of the different people and you could have like all the sorceries and stuff.
Hmm.
I think keeping the Tarnished, like if you kept them a very simple character, like with a simple build,
Hmm.
like maybe just like a sword and shield, kind of
Sword and
like
board, yeah, very well, like the replicating the person on the cover of the game.
yeah. Well, that's that. So actually, the armor on the cover of the game that's Vike's armor. So Vike is a character in the game who his armor is one of my favorites. He's got like the fingerprint
Yeah,
like burns on his armor.
which
Um,
I think that's pretty iconic, and that would be the cool person to make like the primary character.
yeah, and then like I think you would almost have to make him like your typical like knight character, but
Yeah.
you might have to make him a jack of all trades. You might have to make him like okay, well, you could give him the sword of night and flame, and
Hmm.
that would be great for like a visual thing. And I think another cool way you could tackle this is like you just tell the story in segments
Yeah.
because you could just show off. Basically, the Tarnish is trying to take the Elden, is become the Elden Lord.
Yeah.
You got to defeat, you know, it's America's Golden Order or whatever, and you got to like go through all that. And
I think the way personally to do it would be if they were trying to stretch the IP and make the most amount of money off of it. This is probably what I would do is backstory lore, so like history stuff. That's what the movie's about. The
mm-hmm,
movie is the setup, not the game. So the movie is all of the lore prior.
mm-hmm,
So like the big war, the knives, like all that stuff, like the assassinations, it's that stuff. Then that ends, and then you go into a show,
mm-hmm.
and then episodically you do what would be considered like main game stuff.
That would be pretty cool, actually. It's like, hey, we had this one-off thing, and then it leads into this. That would be actually pretty nuts. But
That's I mean that's kind of what Marvel does, which is
mm-hmm,
you have a one-off thing that leads into other stuff. You have Thor movies that lead into Loki, which is 2 seasons.
mm-hmm,
You have, you know, an Avengers movie that leads into WandaVision, and that's a season plus, and then that and WandaVision leads into the other movie and also a different show.
mm-hmm.
So like it's kind of taking that thought and you basically make the movie the establishing point,
Yep.
and then you start the show, you pick up the show like as that's the lore. So if you want to know the lore, you can go watch the movie,
Yep.
and then you can or you could just start the show and just enjoy the show as it is, and the lore makes sense and it affects the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's like the setup or whatever, and then
Yes.
it like leads into the thing. I think here's another thing that I think should be absolutely a no-brainer, but really crucial. Uh, get George R. Martin and
Mm-hmm.
Miyazaki involved, because George R. Martin, like, his involvement with the character, his like, I don't think he had much to do with the story. He just had, uh, from my recollection, I think he had a hand in naming the characters and creating the characters
Sure.
and creating the world, but like the story was open ended. Like he had very little involvement. I mean,
Was it Miyazaki the story mainly,
well, yeah,
or was he the monsters?
well, I think he's like the direction of the game. He's
Gotcha.
more like the direct. He's like that's his brainchild and
Game
baby. So like,
director. Yeah.
um, but like George R. Martin, to my recollection, and again, look this up just to cover my tracks. Like, it was with the names and the world, and that was really it. Like his contributions were significant, but it wasn't like it was like kind of like from back here, and the Miyazaki's got like his hands on it, and George R. R. Martin's kind of back here. But I think George R. R. Martin being involved in this as far as storytelling and like get Miyazaki, and it would be crazy but really smart. Hire like Vati Vidya, literally, like have him on, take a year to, because these are the people that like understand the lore for a living. So
So,
like,
according to the internet, and this is Reddit, George R. R. Martin's heavy contribution was the writing for the lore. So
yeah,
he basically wrote the setting and the 5,000 years prior to when the game starts.
yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, I
So
was close.
Godfrey's Conquest. Let's see. So things like Radin, Rykard, and Ronnie being siblings. That was written by George R. R. Martin. Queen. Also, if any of this is spoilers, I'm sorry. Queen America's arrival in the lands between. Godfrey's conquest. Godfrey and the Tarnished. Ejection from the
This is
lands
all the
between.
beginning.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like Radagon leaving Renalia to become America's consort.
Yeah,
All of that is George R. R. Martin. Basically everything up until the Shattering, which the Shattering was also George R. R. Martin,
yeah. So hit.
and then he hands it off. Basically, he writes the lore, the framework to in which to work, and then hands it off, and they make the actual like in-game stuff.
Yeah, so that's also, I would consult him, definitely Miyazaki. Hire some people like Vati Vidya and these like lore guys who are
So
literally.
I guess what I'm saying is make the movie about George R. R. Martin's part.
Oh yeah, you could. You definitely could
So
do that.
just make the movie about George R. R. Martin's part, and then make the show about the Shattering. So make the movie about the Shattering,
Oh, I see.
and then Make the show about shattering and post shattering.
Yeah, you definitely could do that. You definitely could. That's a good idea too. It's like you could definitely make the movie about everything before the Tarnished
Mm-hmm.
becomes Elden Lord, and then you could like stretch that out into the. That would actually be kind of genius.
Because that way
So
you don't have to worry about like too many. Because there's so much that you need to know post shattering to like
yeah,
fully understand the world, and it's a lot of explanation. And so I think just doing like the pre stuff as its own, and maybe I'm wrong because I don't know the lore that much. You definitely know it more than me as far as like what that section contains as far as
mm-hmm.
amount of information. But if there's a way that you could potentially get that into just encapsulate one movie, that would be awesome and
Yeah,
be a lot more refined as far as a storyline.
yeah. It's like you could tell the story. I think it would be supplement if it was canon. That would be great. Where it's just like it explains like what led to the shattering,
Mm-hmm.
and then like after that.
The game is like, or the show is the shattering, and then you have the game.
That would be awesome.
So
That
you
would
could
be
like watch the movie, watch the show, play the game, and then like
yeah,
in that
because
order.
like I think the movie really should. I think that's a really good point. I think that the movie could focus on everything pre-shattering and
Mm-hmm.
like you build up the story and like go into a little bit more detail of like uh
Relationships of all of these people.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like do that because that way you wouldn't have to focus on like one singular tarnished like and build a story around that. And then like if you did make a show out of it, you could hit the bullet points of like it could literally just be you don't even have to really care about the story all that much. Is like you just care about the action and make it really
Well,
awesome and badass.
it's enemy of the week type show at that point, which is like enemy of the week builds up to end of season is a boss, and you do that like 5 times.
Yeah, and then like you do Margit and Godric.
And
Yeah, Margit and
maybe you do
Godric.
like one or maybe you do 2 bosses per season or something.
Yeah, it's like you fight Renala or Rena. I forgot her name.
Yeah.
Uh, see, there's a lot of R names that
There's
are
a
just kind
bunch of
of,
R names that
and
look
then
the
there's like
same.
Radagon, Radon, Ronnie, Renala,
Mm-hmm.
Rena, like all these people, like, and then at the end of the show, you would get down to the climax of like, uh, it would be Godfrey and Horaloo, and then you go right into Radagon and Elden Beast.
Mm-hmm.
Like, holy God, that would be insane. But you could also,
But as a show, that would take like 4 or 5 seasons, which would be pretty cool. And then you could
I don't,
build
I don't
then
even think so.
maybe
It,
three, maybe three.
I think it could just be like one season of 12 episodes and just
Well, you
put
would
them
want to
all
do
in.
more character development than that, and you would want to like establish some characters and probably make it like a group of tarnished.
Possibly. I think that kind of defeats the purpose. But there are so you could have like a few bosses and a few side characters like
Yeah.
Dialos or D and Fia, like the deathbed companion. You could have
Yes.
like you have the Dung Eater getting off near,
You could have a summoned like ghost that
mhm.
interacts with you all the time
Yeah, like
as like
Alexander,
yeah.
the Jar Warrior. You could have
Or you
him.
could
You could
just
have
have a ghost follow you around and be like comic relief.
your mimic tier is just like your
Yeah.
comic relief.
Yeah.
That would be kind of crazy because like there's so many things you could do. There's tons of summons, there's tons of
Yeah.
everything, and I think having, I think the best way to do it would if you made your tarnished carry the sword of night and flame, for example, and that was their weapon of choice. Maybe
Mhm.
give them like a unique armor that
Sure.
they only have.
Yeah.
Um, that would be kind of cool. Sword of night and flame. Uh, if you have canonically in the game, if you have the sword of night and flame, it's faith and intelligence.
Mhm.
So what you would need to do for that is you could add like incantations, you could add spells, you could
Yeah.
add whatever like
It leans into like the sword magic build a little more, which is a broader like
Yeah, with
experience
you
of
could
the
get a
game.
lot of, you could get a lot of different things, and you could
Yeah.
go, dude, like one episode could be like you meeting Vare and going the to Mogwin Palace,
Hmm.
you know, and
Yeah,
then
that's true because like I forget how big that world is.
yeah, so here's how I would do it is like you could have like a series of things where it's like, okay, well, the Tarnish wakes up in the lands between, and then immediately that's when you go like you explore the land and you do a lot of things. It would showcase you going in like a dungeon, it would
Hmm.
in like a catacomb and like finding weapons or whatever,
Yeah.
and then you go fight Margit, and then you go fight Godric, and that would be like the first episode. And I think at that point the story matters a lot less. It's just kind of hit the beats that people know. When it comes to the story, you could talk about like maybe when you go to the Radon festival, you see that guy and he tells the backstory of Radon, and then like you go fight Radon and you summon all the people, and then that could be a thing.
Well,
But
like the
then
backstory of Radon could be an episode.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like you do
Yeah.
that and you do the whole Radon festival, you beat his ass, and then like there is kind of an order. You could do like a whole episode dedicated to the underground, like where you go to Noxtella and you go to all these
You could
places and
fall into it, and that would be
yeah,
like
you
you're
definitely
running
do.
from something and you fall into it. And
So like when you beat Radon, a meteor shoots out of the sky and opens a hole when you go into Noxtella. Like you
yeah,
go
there
into
you
that
go. There
underground
you go.
world.
Yeah, so
And then
that
like
works out
that
great.
sets up and then you do like a whole episode of that in the next
Maybe two,
part.
maybe a
And,
couple.
and then like and then you could do like
You're moving really quick on these as far as episodes. To me, like Radon is the end of season one. It's like 8 episodes for a season.
am,
That's the
am
end of season one. It ends with you beating him, the meteor coming down, and you
I yeah,
falling into that hole, and that's the
it
end of season one.
I would be happy with either.
Yeah,
Because the more detail you dedicate and the more time you stretch it out, like the Elden Ring series is what
yeah,
you stretch it out.
yeah,
Um, I think okay, so I think to put a pin in this and to end this episode, let's just say this. I think we've come to the agreement that the movie could be a standalone experience setting up the lore. And
yeah.
then we jump into a show which I mean that could you could make it as
You
long as
could
you
do it.
wanted to.
Yeah, you could do a bunch of different stuff. You could also like as like there's DLC now, so you could like bring that into the world and
You absolutely you could do a whole season for the DLC with like
it.
Mesmer and
Yeah,
like all those
that's that
guys.
might
Like
be 2 seasons. Yeah, that might be first half of the DLC is one season, second half of the DLC is another
yeah,
season.
there's so much to I think that would be such a fun project to play with. If
I
you like
know.
storyboard, it'd take like 2 years, storyboard out everything and be like, hey, here we're gonna do because also Elden Ring, it plays with color as well.
Yeah.
So like it's a
There's a
minor
lot
thing,
of
but
cool cinematography stuff you could do. I
yeah.
actually hope that Apple TV gets a hold of this because
Oh,
Apple TV's been doing like if you do A24, who's also really good at color palettes, um, and then Apple TV and A24 do like the show together, dude, that would crush so hard.
oh yeah.
That would crush so hard. And Apple TV is not is willing to like try weird stuff like that. Generally
Because they
speaking.
have Severance and Murderbot right
They
now.
have Severance, Murderbot. They have a show called Silo, which is also based on a book. They're really good at adaptations, which I've noticed. Like
Yeah.
Murderbot is pretty similar to like the book. Silo, I've heard is even better than the books because I haven't read the books, but I've heard the
Mm-hmm.
show is even better than the books. They have a show or a movie one about it's a book adaptation of a sci-fi book called Dark Matter by Blake Crouch,
I've heard of that actually.
and it's supposed to be really really cool, and the show is supposed to be really or show slash movie, I can't remember which one it is. It's supposed to also be really dope. There's a bunch of cool stuff, dude. They're like willing to try some stuff, and they've had a lot of success in that world of like taking already existing IPs and like doing really good stuff with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like those are the right. If we're gonna go movie into film into show,
Yeah.
I feel like A24 into A24 combined with Apple TV Plus.
It's in good hands with A24, I believe.
I think
I think.
A24 is the. I mean, I personally think from a person who is surrounded himself with a lot of video and cinematography guys, I think they would all agree that A24 is probably the best to attack this.
Yep.
Because it's gonna have to be dark. It's gonna have to be pretty gruesome. It's gonna have to be extremely moody and shot in a really particular color palette way. Um, yeah, and then if they're gonna do a show, which I think they should, if they're gonna
Mm-hmm.
stretch the IP as far as monetary goes, uh, just put it on Apple TV Plus. Have whoever showrunner take over the show. Go to Apple TV Plus, A24 Apple TV combo, run that into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime they release a new DLC, you have a new storyline. Because that's the thing. Then you start getting into, as Elden Ring grows and they release any more DLC, or they release like more stories in the FromSoft world broadly, you could do other shows.
Mm-hmm. And I think as far as DLC goes, I think we're done with
You
Elden
think
Ring.
so?
I
You don't
I
think there'll be one more?
I don't think there'll be any more. If there were, I think we'd know about it by now, and it would have come out. But
It could spark another DLC though.
if it did, dude, more Elden Ring is like I'm not gonna complain, and I
Yeah.
will be eating good. But
Yeah.
like anyway, so to wrap up this episode, we've talked about Bungie and how they're uh just in hot water. We've mentioned the Lilo and Stitch movie and how like it ties into the whole idea of big greedy companies. You know, they're missing the point
And
by
not
like
listening to their
500
fan
country
bases.
miles.
Yeah.
They're not listening to people. They think that they're doing everything correctly, but nothing they're doing is working. Um,
And
we
then we
talked.
have Elden Ring, which arguably has the fan base you do not want to piss off the
Oh
most.
God,
If they get that
Jesus!
wrong, dude,
Look,
it's going to be a bad time.
I am a FromSoft fan through and through, and
Oh,
I can tell you with
gosh.
certainty that if this thing sucks, it would probably spark.
Oh, dude.
Oh,
The
it would.
internet's going to be on fire.
There are some YouTubers who are gonna make bank,
Oh, yeah.
bank
Just from hate
complaining
comment.
complaining about that movie.
Hate content. Yeah,
And
100%.
but the thing is, Elden Ring is such a landmark achievement in gaming. Like you
Yeah.
have one shot. I would even if it was just okay, like just make it okay. You know, I would love
Yeah,
great. I would love
think
great.
I
Don't make
think
it suck.
I think, and something A24 should think about in that mindset, talking about the things that we talked about before, is as much creator involvement as far as the storyline and like getting people to be involved, getting other people to be involved as far as like ideation up front as they can do, the more successful it is going to be.
Yeah.
And try to like with an open mind talk to some of these creators who are Elden Ring, like deep Elden Ring people, lore people.
Mm-hmm.
Have these creators as a part of your writing team, at least in pre-production, as you're kind of sketching out the broader scope of the story.
Yeah, because they'd be like, "Hey, this doesn't work. This can't work because this. This can't work because that." And
It prevents like potential major plot hole issues.
yep.
But hey, listeners, thanks so much for listening. This has been really fun. Brooks, thanks so
Mm-hmm.
much for coming here and hopping on with me and doing all this stuff. If you want to listen to this, check it out everywhere you listen to your podcasts. We also repost these every time on our YouTube channel. And if you want to catch us live, join the Discord because that's
Mm-hmm.
the main place we post if we're going live and all that stuff. So
True.
so yeah, if you wanna stay on top of what we're doing, join the Discord. The link will be in the description to Brooks' Discord where you can check that out. And without further ado, Brooks, you got anything to leave them with?
I hope the Elden Ring movie is at the very least okay. Please, dear God,
Please, dear God, if I could ask for one thing, please, dear God, if I ask for one thing in this world,
pray to the Golden Order
yeah.
that this movie will be okay.
All right, see you guys. Bye.
See you. Bye. I gotta increase my faith stat.
Yeah.